Back when I first saw the trailer for Creed 3, I made a few predictions. I predicted that it would be a lazy retread of Rocky 3 and 5, that Tessa Thompson would wow us with her one facial expression, and that Jordan, while a talented actor, wouldn't be up to his directorial debut. But, as it turns out, I was wrong on all counts. Creed 3 is not a ripoff of past Rocky movies, but moves beyond them to become what may be the first true Creed movie of the series. It's more like Count of Monte Cristo with a lot of punching. You see, Adonis and Damien were childhood best friends, but when something bad goes down, Damien winds up in prison. While serving his sentence, he watches Adonis go on to live the life he believes he should have had, and plans his revenge on the brother he believes betrayed him. When he gets out, he gets close to his former friend, waiting for just the right moment to stick the knife in, or in this case, the right hook. This may be the first real Creed film we've had thus far. Imperfect in execution, yes, but wonderful for its ambition and successes in storytelling. And while I doubt that anybody who hasn't seen the Rocky movies as much as I have would even notice, I know the cynical among us would excoriate me if I didn't list the similarities. So let's get that over with, shall we? A nobody boxer waits outside the retired hero's gym, talks the hero into letting him train at said gym, goes too far in a sparring match, has an awkward dinner with his family, talks the hero into training him while looking at sports memorabilia, abuses the hero's trust, and then turns on him to become the villain. Meanwhile, the hero pushes away his family, leading to a confrontation with his wife, problems with his kid, and an eventual breaking down of barriers that brings them closer together. Just like Rocky 5. And there's a death, funeral, and heartfelt talk that combines parts of Rocky 3 and 4 into one. The training montages also include shots from Rocky 2, 3, and 4, like the running on the beach scene, the Mr. T pull-up scene, the villain wasting sparring partners, and the hero on the mountaintop screaming in defiance scene. But where you'd think these would be painful in their plagiarism, Creed 3 moves beyond them to create something new. The characters' motivations, for instance, are distinctly their own. Adonis isn't looking to relive past glories like Rocky 5. Instead, he's looking to rectify regrets from the past. He and the friend-turned-villain have a history, cleverly shown, that keeps the narrative fresh rather than tiresome. That's a hard line to walk, but Jordan and his editors managed it somehow. For instance, Damien, played by Jonathan Majors, which, by the way, has a name so awesome that he should have been an astronaut, isn't a misguided nitwit like Tommy Gunn or a one-note bruiser like Clubber Lang. He's a smart, conniving man on a mission. There are very personal and well-seated reasons for his actions and his hatred of Creed, even if he does become cartoonishly evil at times. He's calculating, careful, and ruthless in a way we haven't seen in a Rocky film yet. And the way he plays Adonis with his seeming innocence and then later his bullying brutality is also unique. This is a guy who is streetwise and patient, yet hot-tempered and mean-spirited. He's full of pain, regret, and the need for love and admiration from the man he once saw as his brother, even as he attempts to destroy him. Michael B. Jordan's Creed, on the other hand, stays true to his character from the first movies, even as he recedes into himself. He is a very private man, even in the presence of his family. The sins and abuses of his past are his own, as a man, to bear, not to be spoken of. He, like many strong men, hides his worst parts deep down. But where a lesser writer would have turned Adonis into a raging crybaby who has to be shown the way by somebody stronger than he is, Creed 3 chooses to give him his pain, allow him his journey, and then provide catharsis rather than insisting upon it. Adonis wants to open up, but he's an old-fashioned do-it-for-yourself kind of guy. He came up hard before his adopted mother took him in, and he still retains that walled-off edge. Anybody who's gone through abuse or trauma can identify with this, and Jordan did a good job putting that to screen with his acting and his directorial choices. Jordan, Felicia Rashad, and Mila Davis-Kent, who plays Adonis's deaf daughter Amara, are all on point. Tessa Thompson even manages to discover a facial expression beyond cynical bemusement, even if she looks uncomfortable trying to do it. I can almost hear the gears grinding in her head as she thinks, is this how the humans do it? But the standout performance has to be Jonathan Majors, who brings a subtle vulnerability to a character that could have easily become one note. He does so much with just his eyes that words are rarely needed. One of the most noticeable aspects of Adonis's journey is his relationship with his family. It's rare to come across a modern movie production where the idea of family isn't treated with disdain. Most fathers are either abusive or well-meaning buffoons, and most wives are seen as better off without the idiot man or the child standing in the way of their glorious self-realization. The family unit is usually treated as a burden, rather than joyful, except in the most saccharine way. Yeah, saccharin, I'm looking at you, Hallmark. But this movie manages genuine human beings with flaws who love one another, fight, argue, fail, and are still willing to be the best versions of themselves for those they love. They have conversations like real loving families would, make one another better by trying to better themselves, and though they may not always like one another in the moment, they care enough to make a choice to grow together. Imagine that in 2023. It's like finding a unicorn that farts $1,000,000 bills. So the characters are solid, and for the most part, you forget you're watching actors and start to see them as real human beings, which is the goal of any worthwhile film. The directing? Also pretty good. Most actors given their directorial debut fall into one of three categories. They can go in blind, thinking all they have to do is point a camera at stuff. They can punch above their weight, striving for cinematic feats they have no business attempting. Or, in rare cases, they can rise to the challenge to make something truly wonderful. Here, Jordan falls somewhere in the middle. This doesn't come across like a betrayal of the style of the first two films, but an evolution, which is what a sequel should be. Sequels shouldn't ignore what came before. They should build on them and move beyond them organically. And Jordan found a way to take the works of the old Rocky films and the first two Creeds and move them forward in fresh ways. His use of eye lines, slow motion, metaphor, and time progression, especially in the final fight, are great. It probably helped that he had some of the directors and writers on the earlier films on hand to advise him. But the movie is a bit uneven, as though two different people were making different movies, and they did their best in editing. Probably because of some script cuts during pre-production after Stallone went AWOL, but I'll get to that. The artistic piece of the film is the final fight between Adonis and Damien, two men who through pain and struggle have come to hate and yet love one another. It's an exciting set piece, encompassing trauma, hatred, betrayal, brotherly love, acceptance, and respect through adversity, with metaphorical visuals that only occasionally become too much. Though I do have to wonder at the final chat between Adonis and Damien where they... well, I won't ruin it for you, but suffice it to say, there may be a very awkward Christmas dinner in the future. Now, okay, let's address the elephant in the room. Rocky is nowhere to be seen. Adonis Creed, the son of his friend, the kid who he guided through fights both personal and physical, and Rocky is nowhere to be found during his greatest trials and triumphs? Not a mention of where Rocky is or what he's doing. He's just cut out of the movie, like they had a script where he was featured, but after Stallone jumped ship when he couldn't have his way, they just couldn't be bothered to do rewrites and just sliced out whole scenes. Which is kind of what happened. It's a real shame that the film lacks the man who originated this series, especially since there are scenes where a guy like Rocky definitely would have been there for his friend. Just a few lines of dialogue explaining why he's not there would have fixed the whole thing, but instead the movie coldly ignores his existence except as the guy who once fought Donnie's dad. That's some stone cold bull.
Lord, it's a miracle! Man up and vanished like a fart in the wind.
But that aside, I for one think this movie was better off without him. His presence was missed, but not so that it distracted from the story at hand, which was well told, well acted, and stands apart as the first true Creed movie we've gotten thus far. But what do you think? Is Creed 3 a triumph, a disaster? Should they let the series fade away, or do you want more? Let me know below, and if you like more reviews, ding the bell, subscribe, and as always, happy viewing!